green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go. And a good summer Thursday morning, Birds fans. Last summer Thursday, we'll say, because next Thursday, the Eagles will actually be on the field getting ready for the 2023 upcoming season. You got Mac and Mac here, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. And yesterday, John, as I've got my eye on whatever's going down in the world of sports, specifically in the NFL, you saw a trade, Jets moving Denzel Mims, a guy who at one time Eagle fans wanted to see the Birds pick in a draft a couple of years ago. Didn't happen. A contract extension for Highsmith of Pittsburgh. Had a big sack year, 14 and a half last year. They got him locked up to a contract extension and a free agent signing. The MVP of the USFL. Are you a big McGruff fan?
Alex McGew. I don't even know what team he was on, but
is it Magoo?
Magoo.
I thought the GH
McGruff the crime dog.
Yeah, McGuff. If you tell me it's Magoo,
I think it's Magoo. Whatever.
Sorry, did you watch?
I didn't watch any USFL. I'm an XFL fan, so
yeah,
I'm an XFL guy.
I would.
When it comes to spring football, I'm an XFL guy.
I, too, would put the XFL ahead of the USFL, which means I would have needed to watch 5 minutes of the XFL, which I think I did. So that would mean I watch more XFL than USFL. But the MVP of the USFL signed as a potential backup quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. And I said, damn, how he hadn't done anything in a couple of weeks. I know nothing massive's going to happen. But can he give us throw us a bone? Give us a little something to chew on? And sure enough, before the day was over, an ex-Eagle returns to the nest. Dennis Kelly back in Eagle Green. And, yeah, he doesn't go back.
They righted all the wrongs, Jody. That was a bad trade for the Eagles in hindsight.
It really was. Not
in
that
hindsight.
Dennis Green went and made Pro Bowls while in Tennessee, but he stuck around there for half a decade, was a starter on an offensive line for some pretty good teams, and I'm still waiting for Dorial Green Beckham to have that breakout season he was supposed to have here in Philadelphia. So, yeah, it was a bad trade. I don't know if I'd go down the righted the wrong.
I'm joking.
Lane,
I'm joking.
But, yeah,
no, I still think that, I said this about the Robert Quinn trade. I still like the decision because Dennis wasn't going to make the team that year or is going to have a really difficult time. So you take a shot at the time, a position of need with a talented guy, and it didn't work out. But I get the thinking. But yeah, Dennis Kelly's one of those guys. The guy's been here for 12 years in the NFL, man. I mean, that's not nothing. And he's 33 now, and he's on his way back. And that was just a little tongue in cheek about righting all wrongs. But when you last in this league as long as he has, you're valuable. And he can play every position but center, mainly going to be brought in to be a swing tackle, or the Eagles went about it last year very interesting. Most teams have a swing tackle interior guy backup on game days. The Eagles sort of had a right side backup, Jack Driscoll, and a left side backup, Andre Dillard. And they did it differently than most teams. What it tells me right off the bat is they don't have confidence in guys playing left tackle if Jordan Mailata goes down. So I don't know if they're comfortable with Jack Driscoll on that side. The young guys, that's a very bad sign for the young guys. The Brett Johnsons, the Roderick Johnsons that, most fans don't even know. I joked about Jordan Mailata talking about those guys in the offseason, couldn't even remember their names. That wasn't a good sign. And I always say the one thing about spring is, and not just the Eagles, but around the league, when it comes to younger players like that, and they get to look at them, even in the limited fashion they do, and they go, "Oh, okay, we need an upgrade here. We need an upgrade there." And you see it happening all over the NFL. And the Eagles felt they needed an upgrade as the depth on the offensive line. The depth took a hit. They were very, very comfortable. Now, they knew you can't keep Andre Dillard. Can't keep it. But they were very, very comfortable with the fact that he was the backup. And now they're not comfortable. And they're trying to get more comfortable.
And as you pointed out, the decision comes down before they even show up in camp. I thought the Eagles were going to bring in a veteran offensive lineman, but I thought it would wait at least until they got into camp and maybe even played one of their preseason games. Like, you're there. I'm not. You see the drills that they go through. I'm not going to call it practice because it's not practice, because it's not even 11 on 11. It's just some individual drills, non-padded individual drills where you're basically judging footwork, but not how you can actually block somebody. I think it's kind of tough to make a call there. You have complete and utter faith that Jeff Stoutland is going to be able to view these guys and put an evaluation on them and tell you whether you do or don't need an upgrade at that position. I thought they'd at least wait into camp to give some of the guys that you mentioned, the young guys, the guys who have been in the league but just recently became Eagles, a chance to show that they are good or not good enough to be backups in this league. They didn't even wait. They went out and got a guy like Dennis Kelly. At this stage tells you that those guys were swimming an upstream battle to begin with, that the Eagles have kind of been waiting on this and looking at this all along. What do you read into the timing? I read that, it's not as good as maybe some people made it out to be before they ever show up for camp. Maybe they did judge off spring work. What do you read in the timing that just happens to be right before they show up at camp? That's when they reach out and sign a guy like Kelly.
Well, if you think a couple years ago with Steven Nelson for a more prominent role, I think there's a certain degree for guys like at Dennis Kelly's stage, part of it's their part of the equation in that he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to do off-season work. He's been in this league for 12 years. Take the summer off, and then training camps are about to start, and figure out where you want to go. Part of it's player related, and then as I said, you start looking. Everybody goes on vacation. They come back and they start to talk about what happened in the spring and where we need extra help. And we've all talked about there's higher profile positions. Still think they might do something in linebacker, more than safety, but even safety. And backup offensive line. I remember Ed Krause was on, I think last week, and brought up Dalton Risner. He was thinking more guard. A lot of people have said, Tyler Steen, and the fact that he played tackle in college, why can't he play tackle? They want him to be a right guard, and he's a rookie. They don't want to wait. They don't want to cloud his head up. And if it gets down to the 53 and there's injuries and he's got to kick back out to tackle, he can do it. But you want him focused on learning the right guard position. So you bring in a guy that's going to be obviously a 1-year veteran minimum deal, like so many of these players they signed earlier in the process. And oh, by the way, if something clicks for these younger players, they can just cut them and move on. It's not. It's just an insurance policy, and but I would bet, if I were a betting man right now before camp starts, I'd say he's probably going to be on the team. But if something clicks for one of these younger guys, and they say, you know what, he is ready, then you can just move on that quickly.
Kelly has played all across the offensive line, and just correctly stated earlier, center is the only position he really hasn't played in his decade-plus year in the NFL career. Your opinion as to what the Eagles are looking at him as? There's going to be the competition at right guard between Juergens and Steen. I don't think he factors into that. I think it was Eddie Kratz last week. We're mentioning Kratz a lot, who said, hey, you don't necessarily just lock it into those two guys. Yeah, I'm locking it into just those two guys. And now with the addition of Dennis Kelly, I'm still locking it into just those two guys. But do they look at Kelly more as a backup tackle than a guard? My estimation was always that I thought he was a little bit better guard than he is a tackle. How do you think the Eagles, if emergency happens and he's their best option coming off the bench for any position, what do the Eagles hope that position is?
Well, his best position is right tackle. The vast majority he's played everywhere, as you mentioned, but the vast majority of his snaps are at right tackle in his career. But he's played second would be left tackle. So I think the Eagles are looking at him as a swing tackle more. As I mentioned, they're not comfortable with the depth beyond Jordan Mailata. More left tackle than right tackle because they know Driscoll can handle right tackle, at least to a competent degree. I would say if you're looking for the curveball, Dennis is like 6'8", and he's almost 6'9", so he can play guard, but you almost don't want to play guard because he's too tall. And it can become an issue for the quarterback. Now there's a lot in recent seasons. There's a lot. Used to be back in the day, guards would be 6'2" for that reason. Now there's a lot of Landon's tall.
Right. Landon's pretty damn big himself.
They've gone, but he's super tall. So it's a little bit kind of an issue, but he can do it. But he's here as a backup swing tackle. I think if you're looking for a curveball, it does enable, especially, he can play right tackle, and that's what Driscoll can play. He's a better left tackle than Driscoll. Not a great left tackle, even as a backup. He's not Andre Dillard, but he's been a better left tackle than Jack Driscoll, and you feel more competent. If you want to go back to the traditional mode of handling it and just have one swing tackle instead of doing piecemealing it left side, right side, then you could start putting Driscoll in the right guard conversation. But I think that only happens if Cam Juergens isn't ready and Tyler Steen isn't ready. So it gives you, I don't want to bring up a Sam Hinkie word, but I'll bring it up. It gives you more optionality with Dennis Kelly here. You can do a bunch of different things, and you can be more comfortable moving Jack Driscoll around if you have to.
Safety net is what it seems that Kelly is coming in here for his second stint with the Philadelphia Eagles. John McMullen, Jody McDonald hanging out with you. Got plenty more to cover, Eagles related and NFL related. Like I said, a couple of moves around the league, and the Eagles fell in line with them. And one ex-Eagle kind of putting a rip on the city of Philadelphia and the fans and the people.
Yeah, what a shock.
Johnny's favorite, CJGJ, once again, opening mouth and inserting foot.
By the way, I like CJ, but I know how he is, and he's gonna pop off at times.
Oh, please remind me, John. You got a way to describe CJGJ that I thought was dead on point. needed to be coached or high maintenance or
He's
something?
he's very high maintenance. He's very high.
Maybe it was
maintenance.
high maintenance. Yeah.
And you know, Marcus Hayes wrote a column about Denard Wilson's impact on CJ Gardner-Johnson, and maybe Denard not being here, maybe it's a silver lining that you didn't get CJ back and you were able to get James Bradbury back instead. Probably a little bit of a silver lining there.
He'll be high maintenance in Detroit for the Lions this year. It'd be interesting to watch. Now I'm looking forward to the Eagles playing the Lions at some point this year. Oh, that would be the postseason since they don't play during the regular season. Showdown with CJ coming back here to Philadelphia. I just hope Denzel Mims doesn't come back and make a big catch.
Yeah, he made a shot at Billy too. People forget that.
Yeah. Back in the day. So the Lions Eagles could be an interesting playoff matchup if it's here in Philadelphia by the time we get to January. What we're getting to next here on Birds 365 is the appearance from our buddy John Stolnis from Bleeding Green Nation. He's guest number 1 on this last summer Thursday of the year on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake them out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
It is Birds 365, our last summer Thursday of the show. Next week, we're actually talking about Eagles doing things on the field. We're going to talk on the field and off the field with our first guest. Always good when we get John Stolnis from Bleeding Green Nation, hosted the Eye on the Enemy podcast. And he looks like he's ready to go out and play the back nine at Royal Liverpool with that hat on.
Yeah, there we go.
Get out and shoot a
Somebody
couple
was
under
asking
par.
for your British Open picks, Jody. So you got to throw them out there. But yeah, maybe John's the pick. Maybe
Yeah,
he's-
he's
yeah.
our
Man,
pick.
you don't want me out there. You don't want any part of that. I don't think I've in all the golf I've played, if I've ever strung together 3 decent shots in a row, I'll need to be reminded of it because
Nice.
I don't think it's ever happened.
I'm with you, John. I get
Yeah.
one. If I get a good drive, I consider it successful. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I hit the ball well, that's it. My short game, forget about it.
Been there, done that, stop that. Don't even bother anymore. Gave it a shot for too many years and said, no, you got to stop playing this stupid game. Still enjoy watching it. I got it on in the background, but you look like you're ready to go out and play a couple holes. But we're glad you're hanging with us here today. Dennis Kelly, John with tongue implanted in cheek, said, righting the wrong of a previous trade, his second trip through Philadelphia. He gonna make this squad? He gonna actually play for the Eagles, or is he purely just a safety net?
Well, I think he is probably one of the backups if there's an injury. I think he kind of slides into the Andre Dillard role, right? I mean, he's going to be a guy who is not going to start. He's not going to. Hopefully, you don't see him this year.
No,
but
yeah, hopefully.
I mean, that's the goal, right? But I mean, if somebody gets hurt, I think he's shown as a veteran who has been able to stick in the league for 11 years or something like that. He's
it's pretty impressive.
It's really what an amazing thing. And I know when that trade happened, we kind of laughed was it the Titans for making that for making that deal. And at the end of the day, they really won that trade. And so nice job by him to kind of have the career that he's had and to plug away. 11-year career. Not many guys do that in the NFL. So yeah, I think he'll make the team. I think he'll be kind of a backup piece and an insurance policy and a half decent one. I think it makes you feel a little bit better about the offensive line, the depth on the offensive line that certainly took a hit when Andre Dillard left.
Yeah, what was your favorite moment of the Dorial Green Beckham era?
When he left.
I joked about it with Jody though, and I said this recently with Ryan Bates, who's turned into a starting guard with the Buffalo Bills. The Eagles traded him for Eli Harold, which was even a smaller time frame than Dorial Green Beckham, and everyone, well, they lost that trade. I don't look at it that way. I still think that DGB trade made sense from a perspective of Dennis wasn't going to make the team that year.
Yeah,
Ryan Bates wasn't going to make the team, so you take a flyer on somebody else that doesn't work out, and then they end up going. In the case of Ryan, as I said, he's turned into a starter in Buffalo. But he wouldn't be a starter here. I guarantee you that. And in the case of Dennis Kelly, as you mentioned, John, 12 years. But for this team, what it tells me is they're not competent. You mentioned Andre Dillard. You couldn't keep him. We all know that. But they were very comfortable with Andre Dillard as a backup left tackle. They are not comfortable with what they have at backup left tackle. That's what it tells me.
No, and I think that's true. I mean, sure, you want to give yourself as much depth as you possibly can, but I mean, Brett Toth, when he seemed, I don't know enough about the ins and outs of offensive line play to tell you whether or not Dennis Kelly is a better option than Brett Toth or whoever else that may be fighting for a backup tackle job in training camp. And I think if they're adding a guy like this, that Jeff Stoutland, if he probably feels like he needs another veteran in the mix, just as like you said, a safety net, a security blanket. It's possible Toth comes out in training camp and or whoever else, maybe somebody else emerges in training camp and really shows Stoutland and the rest of the Eagles coaching staff something, and they decide to go in that direction, and they dismiss. They dismiss Kelly, and he decides to go someplace else, but it at least gives them some level of, like you said, security, some level of comfort that they have a veteran who can play at this level. He's not a starter anymore. Even when he was a starter, he was never an elite level offensive lineman, but he's a capable veteran backup offensive tackle who can play left guard. You cover your bases, and at this point in the summer, you're not making any major trades. You're not signing any major free agents. This is the kind of move that Howie Roseman, I think he's just itching to make a move too, right? Howie Roseman has been inactive for a few weeks. He just wanted to make some phone calls and get something done.
And he did. Dennis Kelly back here to South Philadelphia. All right, John, we probably discussed this before, and if it's somewhat repetitious, I apologize, but maybe I can put a little bit of a different slant on it. 2 new coordinators here in Philadelphia, offensive and defense. The Eagles got perched by their 2 top guys as coordinators last year. And Sean Desai comes in from outside. Brian Johnson gets elevated from within the organization. They will be under a microscope this year because they're replacing, despite what some people might want to say about the former defense coordinator. He put up numbers when he was here. The Eagles defense was pretty damn good on the statistical bent last year. This year come in with their 2 new OCs. Do you care how they go about their job? And here's what I mean by that. There's going to be activities at the NovaCare complex as of Thursday. I don't know if I'll call it practice. You actually have to have 22 guys on the field for me to call it practice. Don't know how much they're going to do of that. But hands-on, out there, letting the players know, working with them, and maybe even trying to show them something. Some of these guys are not quite exactly what you're going to be looking at as far as duplicating moves that they're doing and or their placement during the games. Some coordinators like to be down on the field. Some like to be up in the box. What are we looking at from Sean Desai and Brian Johnson? How do you think each will handle their business? I'm not even talking about what the results are going to be after the fact. We'll judge the crap for that. But before it even gets started, and
I like the idea of the coordinators being on the field. Now, I mean, if some guy, if the play caller, if Brian Johnson wants to get a literal 30,000 foot view of the field, and so he can kind of see what's happening, then that's fine. I think every coaching staff is going to. It's really what I guess what Nick Sirianni is comfortable with, whether he wants to have his guys right there on the sideline with him, or whether he's comfortable being on the headset. I think that whatever they decide to do, and I don't know if Desai is going to be, I think most defensive coordinators are on the sideline. Most offensive coordinators, I think, are on the sidelines now. But if they both decide to be up in the booth, Nick Sirianni, if that's what he wants, I think the Eagles and their coaching staff deserves the benefit of the doubt. After they've taken a lot of criticism these last couple of years for the type of training camps that they've run, not enough hitting, not enough time in preseason games. And I think we have seen that a lot of those criticisms probably should be put on the shelf for a while because of how healthy they were last year and how good they played last year. They came into the season ready to play. And so whatever they do with these, when training camp starts, with these limited practices or training sessions or whatever it is we want to call them, they've earned the grace of trying some things out and doing whatever it is that they feel like it fits each of their personalities and their workflows best. But I think that's a fair thing to ask. Like, what is their workflow going to be? I'm a big workflow guy in my job, in my personal life. I'm not successful and productive until I have figured out a successful workflow. I've figured out successful workarounds and shortcuts. And I think that's the challenge for Brian Johnson and for Sean Desai right now, with the coaches they have, with Nick Sirianni, with the players. What are the players used to? What makes them comfortable? That's all going to get worked out over the next few weeks. That's what the summer's for. That's what training camp's for. So I have high confidence that they will figure it out.
John, I want you to put on, you already have your Eagles hat.
Yeah, I'll get a different hat on if you want.
I want you to put on your Eagles player cap. And if I tell you, hey, what's your least favorite thing about Philadelphia? You're probably not going to say the people.
The fans, no.
Did the Eagles dodge a bullet by, I wouldn't say they screwed it up, but they gave what they felt was a fair market offer for CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think the market answered by saying they did give a fair offer because he took less ultimately to go to Detroit. Was a very productive player. Was a very good player, playmaker, splashy player. Obviously, Eagles fans loved him when he was on the field. But did they dodge a bullet? This guy just shoots himself in the foot a lot.
Yeah, CJ strikes me as one of those guys when, if he feels like he's being paid well and he's being properly compensated, and that when the situation is ideal for him, he's going to be fine. And you probably don't need to worry about him. Although, like I said, I think you guys mentioned it right before I came on. There seemed to be some structures in place, some people in place that kind of helped keep him in line, that tamped down those issues with speaking when he shouldn't speak and saying things he shouldn't say. So you do wonder, like, if he gets the big payday, does he suddenly feel freer to express himself and to voice frustration, especially with the new coaching staff coming in? So I think it's fair to ask. I think it's a fair question to raise as to whether or not the Eagles dodged a bullet here. Talent-wise, I would certainly still love to have him on the field, because I don't think that they have answered the issues at safety coming into the season here. And I still think there's probably a move out there that they're going to make before the start of training camp. But that being said, what an idiot. I mean, what are you doing, man? I mean, he doesn't have to worry about placating Philadelphia fans anymore.
No.
And he's one of those guys that I think would probably, if the Lions do come into Philadelphia at some point in the playoffs this year, would be energized by the fans booing him and would play it up. We know that he's an antagonistic player on the field. He likes to engage with other players and get other players off their game and to get them unfocused. And he seems to me to be a guy who enjoys chaos, right? He's an agent of chaos on the field, and it certainly seems like off the field as well. So I think from a headache standpoint, the Eagles coaching staff is not shedding any tears over having to worry about CJ, GJ, and placating him. But I do still think that they need to figure out that position. And it would have been great to be able to put him in a position here, if he was here, to pay him what he felt like he was worth. He'd be on a winning team. My guess is that we wouldn't have heard him say what he said if he was still a member of the Eagles. But you're clearly dealing with a temperamental guy, and those guys are always a coin flip.
With the safety position, everyone is, at least I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people are just penciling in Reed Blankenship as a starter, as a guy who's going to play well, as a guy who's going to I don't know that anyone is projecting him to be as big a playmaker, interceptions like as CJ, but not a big drop off from the safety position last year when he both filled in himself and as the starting safety this year. Is it a given he's going to start? And is it a given that he can play to the beyond the level that he played last year? Because you usually expect a player in his second year to be better than what you get out of him in his rookie season.
I don't think anything at the safety position is a given. I think at this moment, Reed Blankenship is the heavy favorite to start at free safety. But that's not to say that, Sidney Brown can't come in and as a rookie and surprise everybody and really show out in training camp and earn a starting spot. But I think he's going to have to play exceedingly well in order to knock Reed Blankenship out of the starting lineup. And even then, I think Blankenship would have to look really terrible in training camp in order to lose his starting spot. Now, if they go out and they add somebody, Budda Baker's still out there in the wind. That doesn't seem like
that would help.
It would really help.
Yeah.
And that would be the kind of move that would signal, when they were adding CJ GJ last year right before training camp, it was like you could just feel that final puzzle piece being put into place. It's like, I don't really see a super obvious weakness on this team now. But with this team, you still see it at linebacker and at safety. So adding somebody like that, allowing Reed Blankenship maybe to move to, to have Budda Baker and Reed Blankenship together, or maybe you have Terrell Edmunds, and it just gives you another guy. So I think Reed Blankenship I do think he almost certainly starts this season as a starter. Something catastrophic would have to happen for him not to be the starter, or they would have to add somebody else and for other things to happen for him not to be there. Will he play? Will he improve?
Well, Johnny frees up.
It's going to be interesting to see what Sean Desai's defense is going to look like. I think he should.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Sorry, you froze up for a second for us, but we got you back.
Okay.
To further that, because I was thinking about CJ for obvious reasons yesterday, and it kind of popped into my head. So if you acquire somebody like Budda Baker, obviously problem fixed. It's one of the best safeties in football. But if you have to stay in-house, you have to stay status quo. I was thinking at the end of last season when Abante was hurt, you remember CJ played safety, obviously. And then when they needed a nickel on the field, he played nickel and Reed would rotate in at safety. So I'm starting to think, John, if this is status quo, if you're not comfortable with Terrell Edmonds, somebody, it could be Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown's not ready.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of doing that with Avonte Maddox? For two reasons. One, he's on the field 100% of the snaps when he's healthy instead of 75 if he's just playing slot. 100% of the slots. When you don't have it, in other words, when you don't have a slot corner on the field, he's still on the field playing safety. And then he moves down to the slot when you need the slot corner and you rotate in the best option, whether it's Terrell Edmonds, whether it's Sidney Brown. And maybe that's a way to get Sidney Brown on the field early, but not with a ton on his plate. Just optionality again. I'm using too much Sam Hinkie. But Avonte's a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people are going to say, but he's always hurt. Yeah, but you can't legislate injuries. I want him on the field every play. The only way you get him on the field every play is if you sort of toggle like they did with CJ.
No, I think that's fair. And I think what you have seen out of this Eagles defense, especially in the secondaries, they want to be flexible. They want to be a hybrid defense, right? They want to be able to move different guys in and out. And Avonte Maddox can play safety in a pinch. You know, he can do it like you said. He can, if there's just two receivers on the field, he can stay in there and he can, he can make tackles and play that effectively. But I think obviously you want him as your slot guy, so he's probably going to play the majority there. And like you said, he gets injured, but you can't go into the season thinking, oh, we're only going to have him for 8 games. You know, you go into the season thinking you're going to have him for the majority of the season, and like every player, there's that injury risk there. So I think they have some options. You know, can if it's a disaster at safety in training camp, would they move him to safety full time? Well, now you're talking about you need Zach McPherson to step in, or you need like somebody assigned in the offseason, like a Greedy Williams to step in. And I don't love those options.
But that's why I'm saying, I don't love those options. But that's why I'm saying he's not full-time safety. He's just safety, in other words, to get on the field that 100%, to turn 75 to 100%. But he's still playing the 75 at slot corner. But when you take the slot corner off the field, you're taking one of your best players off the field and putting on, in my estimation, whoever it is, a lesser player. So why not? He's physical. I get the injury part of it, but I can't. I like the way they used, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is I like the way they used CJ at the end of last season. When they had to have a slot corner and Josiah Scott wasn't good enough and Avonte was hurt. Why not have some moving chairs, so to speak?
I think that makes a lot of sense, John. And I think to be able to do that, they do have those guys that can do that. You do run the risk of, if Avonte Maddox does miss time, then you've got to think of another plan. But you can at least start the season with that plan if you're not going to go out and get another safety here this offseason.
All right. As of next week, Johnny S., there will be some battle lines drawn. Are you waiting for the competition between Ian Book and Tanner McKee? I think is one of the key things that's going to be decided in camp. Who's going to be that third string quarterback? Can Ian Book, can you slide him through to the practice squad? They still like to think of themselves as the quarterback factory. Well, they got a little experiment going this camp. Tanner McKee versus Ian Book. What are you looking to see there?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the reports about Tanner McKee coming out of the draft was that he has a decent arm, right? I mean,
well, he ought to. He's like 6'6", 240.
He's a tree back there. But sure, you want to always have those guys. It's like those high upside guys, those high ceiling guys, and the Eagles, they did a phenomenal job with Jalen Hurts, and a lot of that is Hurts, right? The legendary work ethic that Hurts has, but how he transformed himself into the star quarterback that he's become. Sure, you'd like to think that the coaching staff also had a lot to do with that. Brian Johnson, as the quarterbacks coach, certainly had a lot to do with that, and he's still there now. His role has changed, and so it's going to be up to the other coaches and him to kind of bring this guy along. But you don't have to do a whole lot with Jalen Hurts in training camp, right? I mean, you're hopefully not going to see him a whole lot in situations where he could get hurt, where there's going to be any kind of real contact. And it's really the same thing with Marcus Mariota. You just want Mariota to get familiar with the playbook and give the defense something similar to look at so that they can be ready to go. So yeah, I think, and Ian Book's a guy who has had some promise, and I know coming over from the Saints, he was a guy that a lot of people thought could at least be a backup quarterback in the league. I think it'll be a fun competition to see what these guys do, and I'm very intrigued by McKee. I love a big armed quarterback, and if they can, he's a statue back there. So he's if he gets protection and he's in the right offensive system, I think he could be a good backup quarterback. But there's a lot of ifs there, and I think it'll be fun to watch these guys throw.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think the Eagles ultimately are going to default to Tanner McKee because they drafted him. If he doesn't show up and play like Carson Strong or Clayton Thorson, I mean, if he plays himself out of the position. Although I will say, Nick Sirianni, for those who don't know, is really close to Tommy Rees, who is the current Alabama offensive coordinator, but was Ian Book's offensive coordinator at Notre Dame and also longtime starter at Notre Dame. And he trusts Tommy Rees, which is a lot of the reason why Ian Book is here, because he raved about him so much. But so I do think Ian's got a better chance than people realize. But did you watch, John? Have you watched Peyton Manning's Quarterback on Netflix? And I want to get your thoughts on Marcus if you have. If you haven't, I'll just make it more general. Is he really an upgrade over Gardner Minshew? Or do people look at, this was the second pick in the draft? Because he did not look great at times in Atlanta last year, especially when it came to getting the football down the field. Really bad numbers. Is that just people saying, well, he's got to be better because he was the number 2 overall pick back in the day?
Yeah, there's also a lot of, I think, residual Chip Kelly era. We got to get Marcus Mariota somehow, right? I mean, there's still some of that the fan base may have. I haven't seen the Netflix show, so I can't really speak to what we've seen on Netflix. But you're right, the issues with him throwing the ball deep down the field, that's been talked about before. We've kind of known that was an issue with him. What he does bring you is somebody with a similar skill set to Jalen Hurts, that you can basically run most of the same stuff. Now, you may not be able to hit that deep ball to Devontae or to A.J. Brown, although Nick Sirianni will dial them up, whether or not he's successful in doing it, whether or not it's his strength. I think Nick will still dial them up. And I think that, Mariota has 2 better wide receivers here in Philadelphia to make a play on the ball if he does decide to chuck it deep. But at the same time, I think that what Mariota gives you, I don't know that he's necessarily better than Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew, I think, really was done in by a horrific game against the Saints.
Yeah.
Prior to that, most of us believe that Gardner Minshew was a pretty darn good backup quarterback. He had those two of the bad interceptions against the Cowboys. I only threw 3 picks. I think 2 of them were really, really bad interceptions that he threw. Outside of that, he played very well in that game. It was really that Saints game where he came and looked totally ineffectual. Everybody said, we got to move on. This guy can't be a backup quarterback for a Super Bowl contending team. The entire fan base lost confidence. And I get it. I lost confidence in him too. I think Marcus Mariota is a better fit for the type of offense that the Eagles want to run. But it's fair to wonder if they truly are better at backup quarterback. It's different, which might fit what this team wants to do better. But I don't know that he's necessarily a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I vote for different is better. I wasn't as big a Gardner fan as some of the guys here in town. Not that I think Mariota's going to be great. Jalen Hurts goes out and you can't see the difference. Oh, yeah, you'll see the difference because not too many people are Jalen Hurts. But, yeah, he's replacing Gardner-Minshew. It's not like Gardner-Minshew came in here and you said the same thing about him. Oh, no difference with the starter. Hopefully it's not a non-issue that Jalen plays a whole bunch of games, if not all 17 this year. I need your take on a specific Eagle player because he's one that we get varying opinions on, and this one I'm not in the positive camp as some are. How is Kenny Gainwell fit into this quarterback, this running back rotation? It seems like the Eagles are going to run. We're all speculating on it, and none of us really know. Rashad Penny, never been here before. DeAndre Swift, never been here before. So we're dealing with some new fits and some unknowns. How does Kenny Gainwell's role shake out for the Eagles this year? And give me a good, bad, or indifferent on it, the way you think it plays.
Yeah, it's really interesting. He didn't have much of an impact for most of last year, and then late in the season and in the playoffs, he looked like a different runner. He looked like a stronger runner up the middle. He looked like a more determined runner. He broke more tackles, and he looked pretty good. That's a very small sample size, and he's also working with other running backs who have small sample sizes, maybe slightly larger. Rashad Penny has had more success in the NFL, but has had trouble staying on the field. And so with DeAndre Swift, again, had a big game against the Eagles last year. He's had some big games, but he's kind of, in a lot of ways, a Miles Sanders-like in that he's kind of a home run hitter, but leaves a lot of meat on the bone, out of the backfield. So I think with Kenny Gainwell, I think he will start getting the bulk of or more of the carries than the other two guys. I don't know but that'll hold true by the end of the season. I think if Rashad Penny's workload is what we think it's going to be, which is like 10, 12 carries a game, something like that, maybe not quite, maybe 8 to 10 carries a game, he can stay healthy throughout the regular season and he can keep that yards per carry number up over 5, which has been the norm for his career. I think Kenny Gainwell is probably, I don't know, do you think he's their best receiver out of the backfield? I think he has shown an ability to be a good receiver out of the backfield, but the Eagles don't throw to the running backs all that much, except in the screen game.
I talk about it all the time, John. They just don't throw it. I think he's a really good receiver, but I can't say he's a better receiver than DeAndre Swift because DeAndre's done it.
Yeah.
But the Eagles don't throw the football to their backs. So I think people don't realize how good a receiver Kenny Gainwell is. So it's, they have two good receiving backs, but they're not going to throw them the ball anyway.
I think the Eagles are approaching the running backs as let's see what happens. I really do. I don't think that any of these guys have a role spelled out for themselves. I think it's going to be a hot hand situation. Who's running the best? Who's seeing the holes better right now? I don't think you're certainly not going to have any of these guys be a bell cow. None of these guys are going to be a 15 to 20 carry a game guy every single week. But I think you'll probably see a situation where one guy gets 15 to 20 carries for a 2-3 week stretch, and then he's getting 4 carries a game for 3 or 4 games. And one of the other guys jump up. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Kenny Gainwell's role is going to be because I'm not so sure the Eagles coaching staff knows exactly what each running back's role is going to be just yet.
Yeah, and I wonder how comfortable Nick Sirianni was that. I always hear people talk about committees, but then you want somebody to lean on. So it is going to be, that's going to be one of the more interesting stories as Eagles camp moves on as we get closer to the regular season. Last one from me, John, at John Stolnis on Twitter. Make sure you follow John there is Eye on the Enemy podcast. Tremendous listen. The good fights. If you're a Phillies fan, the Eagles kind of hope the Phillies continue to make this push towards the playoffs. They like being on the back burner for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Because they know when they're going to be on the front burner. Kimberly Martin did a heck of a job filling in for Stephen A. Smith on ESPN because she said something outrageous, which is kind of Stephen's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Kimberly said Jalen Hurts is the most disrespected player in the NFL. Buying it, selling it.
I don't know that he's the most disrespected player in the NFL. I think
I think everybody loves Jalen.
My sense, I mean, you've got the Chris Sims of the world who continually rank him like number 9 or number 10 among quarterbacks. And there are some other noisemakers out there who are nothing more than the type of thing you buy at the dollar store on New Year's Eve to bang around when the clock strikes midnight, right? That's their whole deal. And Chris Sims is one of them. There's a couple of guys who have access to grind with certain players. But generally speaking, I think most people believe Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. You may not think I probably would put him at number 2 based off of what he did last year, but the argument is certainly there that he would be 3, 4, 5, something in there. And I think all of the quarterback rankings that I've seen, with the exception again of the outliers like a Chris Sims, has him there. So I don't think that he's the most disrespected player in the league. I think everyone around the league loves the talent. You may have a few other analysts here and there who want to see another year of Jalen Hurts doing what he did this year before fully embracing it and getting in with that camp. And I respect that. I think that's fine. Jalen Hurts has played one elite season of football, but it was elite as elite can get. Yeah. And so I don't agree with that assessment. No, I think he's respected. And I do think, there are some folks out there who maybe are taking more of a wait and see approach, but appreciate and are rating correctly the type of season that he had last year.
Last one for me, also Jalen Hurts related. I'm very much in belief that he's going to have another super season, and it might even be better than last year, which is borderline tough to believe. We talk all the time about returning to the mean for the Eagles on defense and this, that. You could have that with Jalen too. So even though I'm as big a fan as you can get, here's my one concern. And just please, if I'm off base, tell me. And you'll put a smile on my face. Jody, you're friggin' wrong.
Okay.
Because of the season he had, because of the level that his game took him to, I think everybody's going to be reaching for a piece of Jalen Hurts this year. And I'm not talking about opposition on Sunday afternoons. I'm talking about endorsements. I'm talking about promotions. I'm talking about the obligation of not only QB1 of the Philadelphia Eagles, but one of the top quarterbacks in the National Football League. I was in the car 2 days ago listening to my boy Krause saying, hey, Jalen Hurts was here at the station today, signing balls and taking meetings and whatever else. Because, WIP wants him to cut promos for them, too.
Yeah.
When you raise that star level, everybody needs a little piece of your time. And Jalen is not high maintenance like CJ. He's going to try and say yes. He's going to try and do the right thing. He's going to try and take care of the people who are important to either him or the organization in general. Could he get a little bit too thinly spread this year?
I think that's a certainly a reasonable concern. I think like a guy like Randall Cunningham back in the day, I think you saw a lot of the trappings of stardom sidetrack him.
The Randall Cunningham show.
Yeah,
Randall Cunningham.
And you're not going to see the Jalen Hurts show. I know they don't really do we don't really have those types of shows anymore. I miss them, by the way. The Buddy Ryan show was one of the greatest half hours of television in American history. But I think that with Jalen Hurts, if there's one guy that I could say I think won't fall into that trap, it's a guy who is as mentally strong, as mentally tough, and as mentally disciplined as Jalen Hurts. One of the reasons that he became so good was the work ethic. And you're right, he didn't have as much time demanded of him last offseason and during the course of the year because he hadn't reached that star level status. So I think once it's time to get to work, Jalen Hurts is going to be all about the work. And I have very little worry that he will be able to separate all of the demands on his time, the interview requests, all the other things that go along with it. He's a guy that doesn't strike me as a guy who gets too high or too low. He's like a metronome. And he just keeps ticking and he keeps taking steps towards getting better. And the results may or may not be there the same way they were in 2022. He may be a better player and not have as good results this year. That happens sometimes in sports. But one thing I'm not worried about is him being able to compartmentalize the off-field stuff with the on-field stuff. And I think he's a guy who will say no to things. I think he'll do it respectfully. I think he knows how to be a person in the world, unlike a lot of athletes when they achieve star level status. And I'm not concerned about that with Jalen. I think he's grounded and he's surrounded himself with good people. And I think if there are more demands on his time, he will filter it in an effective way. I have a lot of confidence in him that way.
And I surely hope you are right, because the Eagles need him to be that same superstar level quarterback if they're going to achieve what they want to achieve, which is a return trip to the Super Bowl.
And by the way, I missed those shows too, guys.
Yeah.
Those, everybody had a coach's show around the NFL. Those things don't exist anymore. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, these guys are soft today, man.
Listen, Channel 3, Channel 6, Channel 10, get on it. Get a
Well,
show
I don't think
together.
they can. I mean, they don't want to do it. Nobody wants to do anything.
Right.
Because
Cowards.
they're all CIA state secrets.
They had to wait
imagine the Nick Sirianni
They had to wait
show?
10 days before the season started, before the Jets got Hard Knocks jammed down their throats.
Yeah.
You don't understand. This is high spy stuff. The NFL thinks that, if we don't let them know what's going on, what a competitive advantage we're going to have. You think Nick Sirianni's going to do a coaching show, Mr. Competitive Advantage? Won't answer a question about what he may do in an upcoming week because he wants a competitive? No chance, no shot. Don't hold your breath, boys. Not coming back. Not in this town. Not with Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
See, I think a Sirianni show could be high theater. I mean, maybe you don't even ask him about the game. Just let the man cook. You know what I mean? He's entertaining. I think that would be a phenomenal half-hour of television. But you're right, it's never going to happen.
They'd have to get a bunch of desks though, because he keeps slamming it and breaking them with the
Zero chance of happening. The Eagles, and I think Sirianni buys into it too. I don't think that's one where he comes from a directive from the organization. I do think he thinks that if he can keep things under wraps, he can get a competitive advantage on Sunday, and he way overstates it. Johnny Stolnis, always great. Whenever you come on, thank you very much for doing so. Yes, we'll actually be talking about Eagle stuff on the field the next time you join us. Thanks for doing it today.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Bleeding Green Nation and the Eye on the Enemy podcast for you Eagle podcast fans. His one is a good one. All right, McMullen and McDonald coming back. Oh, I got a question for my partner, Johnny Mack. Every once in a while, McMullen and McDonald disagree on something, and some people like when we disagree.
Some people like it. Yeah.
We got one I think we're going to disagree on when we come back. Judging trades. Howie Roseman didn't make a trade. He made a signing yesterday, but he signed the guy that he traded once before. I want to talk about how you judge trades in the National Football League with John McMullen next here on Birds 365.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac guys here on Birds 365. Thank John Stolnis for jumping aboard. Coming up in less than 20 minutes now, Mike Tanier, who's been on with us plenty over the years. They've been doing Birds 365 here. The co-author of the FTN Almanac is going to jump in and talk all things NFL with us. Yeah, Johnny Mac, you and I were discussing the Dennis Kelly situation and the trade that landed him in Tennessee when the Eagles moved on from him a couple of years ago for Dorial Green Beckham, who just didn't quite cut it here. And you said you didn't really call it a lost trade for Howie Roseman because it was a trade that made philosophical sense when the Eagles pulled the trigger on that one, and it doesn't, in your mind, doesn't matter as much. The results as if the trade made sense at the time. Am I characterizing what you said fairly?
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of GMs over the years because I'm interested. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to GMs and how they do their job. And, you know, there's a thought process with, you know, people who've got to make decisions in an unpredictable sort of environment. And that's if you're rewarding outcomes, it's a bad idea. And by that, you can make a good decision and get a bad outcome. You can make a bad decision and get a good outcome. But the more good decisions you make, you stack them together, the more good outcomes you're going to get. So that's kind of the philosophy behind it, because you're always going to miss in the NFL. We talk about it all the time. And in the case of, I think Dennis is a good example. I brought up Ryan Bates. You know, but here's the problem GMs have, Jody. Owners don't necessarily agree with that. And this is a bottom line business. And this is one of the luxuries I talk about that Howie has that other people don't have. You know, that this is a bad day for the Philadelphia Eagles. You know why it's a bad day? Because Daniel Snyder's finally out. They're going to approve the sale today for the Washington Commanders to Josh Harris. Not that I think Josh is a great owner. You see him here in Philadelphia. I think he's middle of the road, what have you. Middle of the road is a heck of a lot better than the worst owner in recorded history, at least in the NFL in the modern environment. So, you know, those guys got a tough job, GMs. Most of them have these owners that are like, I don't care. I don't care if you're going to explain to me Harvard philosophy on decision making. You know, did you win or did you lose? Did you get a good player or did you get a bad player? And people make these rash decisions, and you end up with this constant churn, you know, in these important positions, and those tend to be the bad organizations. The Eagles are a good organization for a reason. They realize you ain't going to get it right every time. And if you're hyper-focused on the mistakes and don't recognize, well, we're 8 out of 10 or we're 7 out of 10, and that's better than most other teams' hit rates, that's when you get into trouble.
Right. You and I are close, but we do disagree on one specific thing. And yeah, I kind of know a little bit about general managers and how they handle their business, seeing as I lived in a house with one who did it for many years on a professional level and had to deal with the W's and L's of trades. It is. It's a cutthroat business, and you are judged by it. And good owners will be more patient with you. And Jeff Lurie is about as good as it comes. So Howie Roseman's track record is what it is, and it's way above 500. So you're right. Howie can do certain things that others can't. But if you have an L, you got to take an L. You can't just, it was a good idea behind it. Here's my philosophy behind it. An L is an L is an L. If I had told you that Mickey Loomis last year believed his Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade was a good one, would you say, all right, if he can justify it in his mind, can he call that one a W? No, he can't.
Well,
they weren't keeping Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They were moving on from him. They weren't going to use him. They had 2 safeties. He wasn't going to start for them, and they got 2 draft picks for him. It doesn't matter what he did, went and got 6 interceptions for the Eagles, wasn't going to play for us. Could Mickey Loomis, by your philosophy, say, I can call that one a W because I had the philosophy nailed down as to why I wanted to move off Chauncey Gardner-Johnson?
Well, Mickey is graded the same way by me as Howie Roseman and everybody else. I grade everybody the same way. So if I think the deal makes sense, that's my scorecard. It's not like Howie's coming up to me and saying, oh, by the way, John, that was a good decision when we traded Dennis Kelly for Jordal Green Beckham. He's not trying to lobby me to say it was a good decision. In my opinion, it was a good decision because Dennis Kelly was not going to make the team, and they needed a receiver. And for those who don't know, it's been a while. This guy was a second, I think he was 40th overall, somewhere in that range. And the only reason he was 40th overall is because of the off the field stuff. I mean, he got in some significant trouble at Missouri. He got kicked out of school, had some ugly accusations when it came to physical assault. This was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. This was one of the best receiving prospects ever. 6'4", 6'5", ran 4, DK Metcalf level size and speed. And it didn't work out. They needed a receiver. They didn't need an offensive lineman. Same thing with Eli Harold. I bring up that trade with Ryan Bates. They didn't need an offensive line. Ryan Bates wasn't going to make this team, not even close. And Eli Harold was a former 3rd-round pick, and he was an edge rusher, and they needed an edge rusher. And you rolled the dice, and it didn't work out. So that's my scorecard. It's not like Howie's saying, oh, by the way, I'm sort of trying to explain the mistakes. I acknowledge it didn't work out in the end, but that's my thought process of just rewarding outcomes is bad because, again, you can make a bad decision. You can make a bad decision and it works out and it works out really well. And you say, well, if we keep doing that, if we keep using that decision-making, it's going to keep working. That's going to end up really, really badly. Mickey Loomis, I don't think has made good decisions. Now we have, Randy on the show, Randy Mueller. He's a big Mickey Loomis guy. He'll defend him, but I think he defends him because he's a big Mickey Loomis guy. Howie's a good GM. And I said it when people thought he was a bad GM, and now they're all on board with it. The only reason they're on board with it is because he sticks to his guns and he uses the same philosophy, trade in and trade out. One of the things Howie was most upset about with the Jalen Reagor pick, and you can believe him or not, maybe he's blowing smoke up everybody's what because he doesn't want that stain on his resume, but that stain's already on his resume. Nobody's given him a pass for drafting Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. He never hears the end of it. One of the things why he's changed since that day, he believes if he's making the decisions and he's going to take the good or bad, he should make the decision. And he feels he leaned on the coaching staff a little bit too much. And he wanted Jefferson and blah, blah, blah. And the scouts wanted Jefferson. And they kind of threw the coaching staff under the bus. I don't know if it's true, to be honest. They might be just throwing him under the bus because they don't want it. But I talked to Doug about it, and, he did like Jalen Reagor a lot. So maybe it is true. And I know he regrets it for that reason, because he didn't go with his final decision. And I'm speaking of Howie. But yeah, rewarding outcomes, that's what Daniel Snyder does. That's what bad owners do. If you don't acknowledge the unpredictable nature of the NFL, Jalen Carter's another example. Man, that's a good decision. That for me, it's over. Period. End of sentence. Good decision for the Philadelphia Eagles. Would it have been a good decision for the Chicago Bears? Maybe not. Maybe if I'm in Chicago and I go, you know what? Ryan Pace doesn't have the cachet Howie Roseman has. Can't take the kid number one. Absolutely can't. I get that. Then, unfortunately, he traded down, and he was in another position where could have had the kid again, and still didn't have the guts to take him. That I question more, because it's later in the process, and there's at least a little bit more wiggle room to say, oh, it's worth it. The value's worth it. You potentially get the best player in the draft, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if he goes off the rails and he gets and he does some stupid stuff, it's still, to me, not going to change that it was a good decision.
Yeah, you and I see this very differently. Maybe you're just more cerebral than I am, John. It's a results-oriented business. It's a results-oriented world in which we live. I can understand a person's philosophy and doing a deal, making a trade, making a pick, whatever else. And you're right. You would rather have a guy who puts more thought into it, who can justify it in his own mind, justify it to his boss ahead of time, than just, oh, well, give me a year and we'll figure out whether he got it right or wrong. There is a process to it. But at the end of the day, when you reach a period down the line and results are in, results outweigh philosophy every day of the week and twice on Sundays. No matter how good your thought process was to arrive at a decision, eventually the results are going to win the day. That is always going to be the number one determinant as to whether you did something right or something wrong. It may suck. You may think it's unfair, but that's life. And Jeff Lurie is better than other owners at giving his people who work under him latitude and letting them make their decision and cutting them slack and giving them more time, whatever else. And that's one of the reasons why the Eagles are a good organization. But yeah, at some point, when they felt that Doug Peterson was not getting the job done because he was flexing his muscles with picking coaches, they moved on from a Super Bowl winning coach 2 years later. Was that a good decision or a bad decision? Well, Nick Sirianni's come in and done well.
And I constantly say they should have given, and I haven't moved off that. They should have given Doug another opportunity because of what he did. And I still firmly believe that. So it's not like I always say the Eagles make the right decision. But you're right. I said that in my explanation. It's a bottom line business. But that takes care of itself if you make good decisions over a long period of time. That's the whole point of the philosophy. What doesn't work consistently is if you're herky-jerky and you're making goofy decisions, but one works out. And it might work out brilliantly for a short span. And that's why the Eagles are the Eagles, and the Commanders are the Commanders, and the Cowboys are the Cowboys, and the Giants have been the Giants. You don't have to look outside the NFC East. You got one good organization and three bad organizations, I would argue. Now, there's a lot of good with Jerry Jones, but he's a wild card. He gets too involved. He does all this stuff. The Giants for years were a tremendous organization, and then they went away from what they did in the Jerry Reese, Tom Coughlin. And you go back further, they were very stable, very structured, and they were a good organization, a good team. Then they go away from it. They had a decade where they were just lost, just absolutely lost. Washington, again, pre-Daniel Snyder, tremendous organization, tremendous. Then they sell it to this guy, and they're the worst organization in the NFL because he consistently makes bad decisions. That takes care of itself, and that's the big advantage the Eagles have had in the NFC East over the past number of years. And I'm not going to say Dallas is a bad organization. They're kind of in the middle, but Jerry does some.
You got a bad general manager.
Yeah,
AKA the owner.
He does some tremendous things business-wise, but I'm talking football-wise.
Yep.
Washington, we know. The Giants are the best example because they were a good organization, and a couple things went badly, and they said, we got to move on from Jerry Reese. And all of a sudden, Dave Gettleman's in there. Well, good. Then you see bad decision, bad decision, bad decision, bad decision. It takes care of itself, the bottom line. If you're patient, and that doesn't mean you're not going to have bad seasons like the Eagles did in Doug Peterson's last season. It's a talent-driven league. It's cyclical. But the Eagles prove, they make far more good decisions than bad decisions. They can rebound far quicker than these other organizations. That part of it takes care of itself if you're willing to have the patience to let it take care of itself.
I surely agree with your overall evaluation of the Eagles. Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman, since he's gotten back into the big chair, just stone cold outstanding. But it doesn't mean because overall the Eagles are one of the best organizations in the National Football League. You can't look at an individual decision and go, oof, they missed on that one. It happens. It doesn't besmirch everything else that they've done. And to use the example you used, if Jalen Carter goes out and is caught driving a car 120 miles this week and he racks it up and he injures himself or somebody else, I'm sorry, Howie's an F. If he never takes the field, no matter how great the decision-making process was, and at number 9 was just too much value, and they had that thing play. If the guy goes out and wraps a car around a tree, I'm sorry, it's an F of a pick. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how good the thought process was. It comes down. He goes out and makes the Pro Bowl this year. It's an A+. Of course it is. They 8 teams passed on him. He's going to make the Pro Bowl as a rookie. It can go either way, but it will be decided by what's done on the field or off the field, not by the decision-making that got to them calling out his name on draft night.
It works again. By the way, I don't think people listen at all. I got somebody in the comments saying, do the 3 other bad teams in the division have multiple Super Bowl titles over? I just got done telling you the Giants had a great organization. The Washington Redskins had a great organization pre-Daniel Snyder. That's when they won the Super Bowls. The Cowboys had one of the best organizations in the NFL for years, right up, not only, by the way, to give Jerry Jones credit during the Jimmy Johnson, but I'm talking about, Tex Schramm and Gil Brandt and Tom Landry, maybe the best organization in football as a whole. That's when they won. When they had good organizations. Now that they have crappy organizations, magically, they stink.
25 years since the last Super Bowl.
Yeah. Now, getting back to Jalen Carter, look, I get it. And people, that's what sports is. And yes, if he gets arrested doing 100, people are going to, and that's why it takes patience. I say it all the time. On the other end of the spectrum, by the way, you can't say because Jalen Hurts became Jalen Hurts, that was a good decision. That was a goopy decision.
Yeah,
but it worked
you,
out.
You and I are never going to agree on this.
Yes.
I'm a results-oriented guy. You're a philosophy guy.
Yes. The point I'm trying to make is the more good decisions, the more good outcomes. The more bad decisions, the more bad outcomes. Occasionally, and that's the whole. And look at, and by the way, don't listen to me. You can Google decision making executives. They'll all say the same thing. Rewarding outcomes is a bad way to do business because You can get lucky. You can get lucky, but you're not going to get lucky consistently. And you're not going to be unlucky consistently if you make consistent good decisions.
Yeah, I'm a results-oriented guy. If once enough data has been taken in after the fact, you can go back and evaluate what was or wasn't a good or bad decision. No matter how you felt about it at the moment, at that time, you need to be flexible with your ability to analyze whether it was or wasn't a good decision, and nothing surpasses results.
No matter how many times the Giants won multiple Super Bowls. Yeah, when they were a good organization.
It's been a while since
Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin, Jerry Reese, George Young. They were a great organization. Dave Gettleman, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, on and on and on. What is this not what am I screaming into the wind, Jody? Man.
You and I did, you know what you and I disagree on. I don't disagree with you a little bit that of late being the last 5 years, maybe even 10 years. Giants Patriots, we now more than 10 years from when the Giants knocked off the undefeated Patriot. What year was that? Tanier will know. I can ask him in a second when we punch him up. What year did the Giants beat the Patriots when they were undefeated? I should know it off the top of my head. I don't, but I'm saying it's a minimum of 8 or 9 years. It might be 10. The Giants haven't done diddly squat since then. The Redskins, the Commanders, Redskins football team, call them what you want, haven't done diddly squat, and the Cowboys haven't done diddly squat. Yeah, if we're talking about the history of the organization, yes, they have all at times been outstanding, top of the pile type organizations. Been a while for all three of the other teams in the division, not known as the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm with you, John, on that one. If people are misinterpreting what you said, shame on them. All right, Jordan McDonald, John McMullen, always laughing at the ongoing conversation we're having. Mike Tanier is going to join us next, co-author of the FTN Almanac, talking NFL with us here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Eagles. Eagles.
Appreciate you streaming in on the last summer Thursday of the year. Next Thursday, the Eagles will actually be on the field, and the teams all across the National Football League will be getting ready for the season on field. That's why we bring in an NFL expert who, oh, by the way, man, he's smart. He types in the private chat here, 2011, when the Giants beat the Patriots. He answered my question for me. I didn't see it till after I threw the break. Thank you, Mike Tanier, for answering my question.
I was a New York Giants beat writer for a couple of weeks that year, and that was the year of the lockout. That was the year of the Eagles' dream team, to the end of the Andy Reid era. So we're going back a while for when the Giants were that caliber of organization.
And it's been a while, you're right, since. I still think Mara's a good owner, but he just has had a couple of bad hires. And John pointed out a couple of them that haven't got the job done underneath them.
But real quick, it was the 2007 Patriots that were 16-0. That was the perfect Patriots group.
That was the perfect season. 2011 was the year that Edelman or Welker doesn't catch the bomb from Brady.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, it was the bomb, but Edelman out in the flat. The ball hit his hands, and who's to blame, him or Brady? Yes, thank you for bringing that memory up. What is the separation right now between the Philadelphia Eagles and everybody in the division? Most would put Dallas second. Is it a massive amount between those two teams? Is it close? Do you actually believe the Cowboys could beat the Eagles over the course of the 17-game regular season?
I believe that the Cowboys could beat the Eagles. And Aaron Schatz's DVOA, the FTN Almanac, the Cowboys have the highest projection.
Really?
Right now coming in on that particular almanac. And they're ranked a little bit ahead of the Eagles there. And I have to pull it back up to get the exact numbers here. But I would say if the Eagles are number one, and again, it's very much neck and neck, it is a very tiny separation from the Cowboys. And the Niners, if the Niners come up with a quarterback plan that makes any sense, then it's everybody else in the division, in the conference.
The Cowboys, I do think it's, partially Philadelphia, obviously, Mike.
Yes.
But we were talking about good organizations, bad organizations, good decisions, bad decisions. I will say this about the Cowboys. They look loaded on the field.
Yes.
Now they have some issues. Mike McCarthy taking over the play calling. I got some work done if people can hear. But Zach Martin now struggling a little bit with his contract issue. I don't know. The Eagles don't seem to have these issues very often. Obviously, it's going to come up.
Right.
How much of a factor does that play into it when you guys are doing your work, or you can't worry about that stuff? You can't really rate that stuff anyway.
It's tricky when you're doing the mathematical projections, because all of us can look at Mike McCarthy as a play caller and say, we've seen how that works out. And then
that'd be me.
Yeah, and that'd be me, and that would be Aaron when he does the math and everything. And then when you have to plug the math in, you have Mike McCarthy, a veteran offensive coach, Super Bowl champion. You're plugging in the statistics he had with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and guys like, Donald Driver and Greg Jennings at wide receiver, or even later Devontae Adams. And the numbers don't look bad. So he goes into the math and comes out, that's a pretty good offensive coach. You're not having a problem. So that's one of the things with the Cowboys. And, I've joked about it for years, and it's almost a meme. The moment anything goes wrong for the Cowboys, and especially for the Mike McCarthy Cowboys, the moment there's any adversity, it seems like they go into one of their little swan dives. It wasn't so bad last year because I know they won a couple of games with Cooper Rush, but then that fell apart. And then, we're missing this, we're missing that. And suddenly this team couldn't come together. So the trick is, can you rely on that year in, year out? Or is this team so good when you talk about the loaded frontline talent that they can even overcome some of that and still be one of the strongest teams in the conference?
I'm going to ask you to put the numbers aside for a second. This is more of a philosophical question. We've been arguing philosophical a lot today. Brandon Cooks, nice, talented player, puts up numbers. You're crunching the numbers type guy. But you sometimes got to look at least a little past the numbers and go, why the hell is he on so many teams? If he's this good, why does he keep getting traded? Why does he keep moving? If you've got a guy who puts up those type of numbers, you'd figure a team get their hands on him and go, well, we're going to keep this guy. We're not going to move this guy. But yet he gets moved all the time.
Yeah.
How do you factor going into a season a guy like that? New place, new arrival. How's he going to fit? No, by the way, everybody else that's had him has discarded him in some way, shape, or form. How do you factor that into trying to figure out how productive a guy's going to be in a new place?
That's hard because especially with that guy, you go behind the scenes and you expect to hear dirt, and you don't really hear dirt on him. You know, but McVay was pretty happy with him, all told. Different coaches were pretty happy with him. The story in Houston, in addition to the fact that they're rebuilding, is that he was kind of like in with Easterby, the sort of GM that they had that they got rid of. And then as the new GM takes on more power and the new coaches come in, they want to make a change from that. And he wanted to change. The thing about Cooks is if he's coming in as your wide receiver one and the focal point of your offense, you know, I would red flag that. I would yellow flag that pretty quickly because this is a guy who is often on the outs, often looking for his next job. He's coming in as wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. That's a little different when you say, what if this guy flakes? And he usually doesn't flake. He's usually pretty productive. Well, then CD Lamb's the guy. Gallup is still there. They've still got other people who could be a focal point there. Now he's a value added, and that makes him a little bit scarier as an addition. I'd say the same thing about Gilmore at cornerback. You know, he might not be the shutdown number one cornerback the Colts thought they were getting a couple of years ago. You're bringing him in, and he's in there with Trevon Diggs in this defense. He's more of a value added than somebody that they're relying on to, like, save them.
Yeah, and that's kind of my whole thing with the Cowboys, Mike, is their two big issues they kind of fixed with Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore, but we'll see how it shakes out. Yeah. Clearly, the big three you mentioned, the 49ers, are in that conversation as well. On the NFC side of the spectrum, depending what happens at the quarterback position for them, then they could be a really, really relevant team, obviously. I'm looking for that surprise team, Mike. I need it. Everybody's talking Detroit, Seattle. Looks like Minnesota's taking a significant step back. Is there a surprise? Even go farther if you have Detroit 4, Seattle 5. I don't know what you guys have. I want a real surprise team that nobody says, maybe Green Bay, maybe Chicago. They say, maybe they're a little bit better than we think.
Right. You have to look at the NFC South, and you have to look at their schedules.
Yeah, somebody's got to win that division, right? There will be an NFC South champion this year, right, Mike?
Right, and they could win a ton of games. I've got the easiest schedule, according to FTN Almanac, is the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to read off the Saints' beginning schedule here, okay? Tennessee Titans, we have no idea who their quarterback is. Carolina Panthers, rookie quarterback. Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, quarterback. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Patriots, I mean, I think we know what they are these days. And then you get the Texans, rookie quarterback. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. The best quarterback they face might be Mac Jones in that group. The Saints still have a very good defense. They have all those old guys like Cam Jordan and them. They're still there. And now you got Derek Carr at quarterback. So you have like a kind of a competent quarterback. You go 5-1 and not be a good team. And not be a very good team, be an okay team as the Saints and start out 5-1. That's a team that could go out there and wind up winning 11 games, 12 games, getting a home playoff game, maybe facing the Cowboys as a wild card in the home playoff game and getting smoked as a result because you're not really that good.
That's very interesting. I had not gotten into the weeds that much to check the Saints schedule. It does sound easy to start things. All right. I'm going back to the Cowboys one more time because I guess I'm going to die on this hill that the Cowboys are overrated before the season started. They filled two needs with their acquisition at wide receiver and cornerback with guys who've been there, done that, better suited to be wide receiver 2 or cornerback 2. I understand you're describing where they fall on the roster overall. Who's replacing the tight end? And who the F is going to be kicking for the Cowboys this year? Yeah, they filled 2 holes, but I think they still got 2 holes, and they're pretty important holes because the past couple of years, when in doubt, Dalton Schultz was getting the ball from Dak Prescott, and yeah, you can lose games via the kicker's foot in the National Football League. Where are the Cowboys going with tight end and kicker?
I'm going to admit to you, I was not down in the weeds in terms of the Cowboy kicker situation and Tristan Vizcaino going in there. One thing about that is if these guys flake out, Jarrah will go out and get Robbie Gould or somebody like that if he has to. Tight end is interesting. Luke Schoonmaker, the second-round pick. rookie tight ends, they don't do it for me. You know, even when the Falcons had their guy a couple of years ago, he's a good ball player, didn't do it for me as a rookie tight end. They've got Jake Ferguson, who I think can play a little bit. That is a potential hole there. That is a potential problem. I will say in the past, it was Dalton Schultz and Blake Jarwin. Every year they thought Blake Jarwin was going to be the guy, and Dalton Schultz was taking care of him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that
Don't
is something
sleep
that
on Peyton Hendershot either. He showed some things.
Okay.
I think the Cowboys will cobble it together, but I'm with you. I think they kind of overdrafted Luke Schoonmaker.
Yes.
So I'm not necessarily counting on him.
Yeah.
I do think they went down the Eagles routes a little bit with Mozzie Smith, their first round pick. From this perspective, Jody knows I talk about this all the time. Like, he's a run stuffer, man.
Yeah.
And people want first round pick. They want sacks. Are Cowboys fans gonna enjoy Mozzie Smith because hey, DeMarcus Lawrence can rush the passer unless Lane Johnson is there. Micah Parsons can rush the passer unless he's on Lane Johnson's side, but they do it against everybody else. I think Mozzie Smith only helps that, but he's going to be a non-sexy player, as I would call him.
What's funny about the Cowboys is I think we always meme them as like they're going to do something sexy. They're going to get Zay Flowers. They're going to get Bijan. And as often as not, they don't do these super sexy things. You know, I guess Micah Parsons was sexy. We loved him because he was a Penn State guy. I don't think that was perceived that way when he was picked there. They generally, especially in the first round, go out and get sort of the biggest, fastest, strongest dude out there. Mozzie Smith kind of follows that. He only had half a sack in his, I think in his college career, he only had half a sack, but he's this mountain of a dude. And Cowboys fans will be satisfied as long as Parsons and Lawrence are getting a bunch of sacks. They'll figure it out. And you can also see the logic. Okay, the Eagles are tricky to stop in every way. If you're looking at the Giants, you're looking at stopping the running game. And that's, look, Saquon's his own topic right now. But in general, you're looking at stopping the running game. If you're worried about the Washington Commanders in any way, you kind of want to stop their running game, and you might want to stop their option game with this young quarterback. Mozzie's somebody who could do that for the Cowboys.
Mike, you always a great numbers guy with Football Outsiders and now the FTN Almanac. All right, the numbers have been crunched. You're projecting the entire season. Week number 1, Eagle fans are hoping the Birds go up to New England and start with a victory on Tom Brady Day, stick it in the Patriots' eye, because the Patriots did get him in that one Super Bowl. When the season's over and done with, will Bill Belichick still be the coach of the Patriots, have stepped down as the coach of the Patriots, or been fired by Robert Kraft as the coach of the Patriots?
He's not going to get fired. Kraft will give him another year. Kraft has been making these mutterings about how he's not completely satisfied.
He's floating a little stuff out there to make the coach worry.
Right. But Kraft is a slow-moving operator, and he's not going to forget 20 years there on one. I would say there is a chance Belichick could step down, and I think one of the equations is how do things go with Mac Jones and now Bill O'Brien coming back in. Okay, you bring Bill O'Brien back in because your experiment with goofing off with Judge and Patricia and all of that. Okay, you realize that was a mistake, but you still bring in one of your old lieutenants. And you still bring in one of your old lieutenants who has a habit of getting on everyone's nerves around him. So is this a year where O'Brien and Jones clash and all of a sudden Bailey Zappi's out there and there's all this friction going on? If so, I could see Belichick saying, I'm going to walk away from this. You guys fix it. If it's just another 9-8 season where they win a bunch of games 17-14, but it sounds like everyone's getting along or Belichick still has control of the ship, I could see that going for another year or two.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of goopy Matt Patricia stuff.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I forgot.
Why the heck is Matt Patricia here? Especially when you're going to a new defensive coordinator who's done it for 1 year elsewhere in Chicago and Sean Desai, but is certainly not entrenched. And all of a sudden you have this, say what you want, but he's a football heavyweight.
Yeah.
Even though we know what happened in Detroit, we know what happened in New England when they're putting him on the offensive side. I don't know what Bill was doing. He went the Andy Reid, Juan Castillo route for those back in the day. But
yeah.
why is Matt Patricia in Philadelphia?
Don't know. I have no idea. And that's one of the problems. I wasn't there to talk to the assistant coaches in May when they did that. I didn't have that opportunity. I don't know what the dynamic's going to be with Desai and these guys. But if you're talking about the level of experience and how many years of Belichickian knowledge should be in that brain, that's a positive. If we have somebody coming in with ambitions and also somebody who, let's face it, doesn't always apply the knowledge very well, that's a potential yellow flag. But again, I don't know enough about the dynamic of this new defensive coaching staff to know what Patricia's role is going to be.
All right. Assuming health, then it's a little bit of a optimistic bent. What kind of year do you think Brock Purdy's going to have with San Francisco if he is good to go by week 1, pretty damn close to 100%? What kind of year do you think he has in San Francisco?
A Garoppolo-like year, possibly. A less than. I don't know where people got the impression that Brock Purdy was doing some phenomenal thing. He was making 2 plays a game that kind of you looked at and say that was the quarterback making the play. And later in the playoffs and in the postseason, late in the season, you saw a lot of times where, especially in the first half, Purdy was struggling like a rookie struggles, especially like a 7th round rookie struggles. When he was getting pressured, he was always running to the left sideline, kind of like shades of Kevin Cobb, if you remember that. Running the left sideline, getting himself in trouble, and then he throws the ball away, and then the next time he hands off to McCaffrey and they gain 25 yards, or they kick a field goal because they were already at the 20 because of a turnover or whatever. I don't think Purdy has this high ceiling. But when I say a Garoppolo-type season, Garoppolo got them to the playoffs last year, got them most of the way there, got them to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. That's the way that 49ers offense and defense and offensive line are all constructed.
Now, by no means am I a Jody McDonald like Brock Purdy fan, but I'm going to take up the Brock Purdy mantle here because you bring up Jimmy Garoppolo like. I picked the 49ers, full disclosure, Mike, to go to the Super Bowl last season. And my thought process was Trey Lance is going to be at least a little bit better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's the best team in football. That's the deepest team in football. Well, they got that, but they got it from Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy, I'm with you. Kyle Shanahan was scheming him up and all that kind of stuff and tremendous talent, but he was better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll give him that. He was better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
I tend to disagree. I think when watching the games in and out, there were so many of those games in the first half, it was nip and tuck. They were punting in 4th and 1 situations and doing other things that you don't do when you have a lot of confidence in your offense. And the system was designed for the 49ers to say, we're going to back the Seahawks or back the Cardinals into the corner because they're not going to be able to move the ball at all on defense. And we're going to be able to get the ball on the other side of the field. And then if Purdy delivers 1 or 2 downfield passes, that's all we're going to need from him. And it was definitely one of those don't lose the game kid situations. What I think we saw a lot of is 49ers up by 10, up by 13 later in the game. Then they open things up, take the risk, and Purdy delivers in those situations. So I felt as it was going on, we were seeing less and less out of Purdy and more of the scaffolding around Purdy. And now, again, if this was a normal offseason and Purdy was like, I've been in OTAs and mini camps and everything like that.
Well, that hurts. That hurts, especially a young quarterback having no off season. And by the way, and I told this to Jody, I don't get why the 49ers are putting so much pressure on the kid. You have a built-in excuse. Don't worry about saying he's going to be back for week 1. Say, Brock will be back when he's healthy. And then you have this built-in excuse to give Trey Lance one more chance.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'll hop in. So I'm going to disagree with Tanier the same way I disagree with McMullen. Results matter. How do you get results? I don't care how you get results. Get results. Results matter. Number 1, John, that's why they're floating the Brock Purdy is going to be ready for the beginning of the season because he's their best quarterback, and they believe he's their best quarterback, and they watched him go 6-0. 6-0. You say Garoppolo got him into the playoffs. They were at 7-4 when Garoppolo went down. Purdy was 6-0. That's why Purdy is going to be their starting quarterback. Result, end of the day.
But Jody, I'm saying
L's win out over anything else you're going to find in the FDN Almanac. W's and L's.
Wins are not a quarterback stat.
Yes.
Oh, come
They are
on.
not.
You know it is. Everybody knows it is.
They are not. They are not a quarterback stat. But Jody, I'm saying they're doing Brock Purdy a disservice. They're doing a young quarterback who hasn't had an off season, is not going to have an off season, a disservice by pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. They have a built-in excuse. I don't know why I'm criticizing John Lynch. Use it, man. Don't put all that pressure. And you know, Kyle Shanahan, I've said this with a bunch of people. You know, Mike, that dude's like John Gruden. He'll fall in love with a quarterback, and then he'll make a bad throw, and he'll fall out of love with him. And the same thing's going to happen with Brock Purdy.
So you're suggesting John Lynch should lie to 49er Nation, even though they believe Garoppolo will be ready for the first game of the season.
Yeah, he'll be the first GM to lie to his fan base. They do it. They wake up lying to their fan base. That's all they do.
And I tip my hat to John Lynch that he's being honest, flying in the face of what every other general manager does, that he's actually believes his quarterback's going to be ready, believes he should be their quarterback, because John Lynch, like me, believes wins is a quarterback stat.
No,
and he's he's being honest with you.
Come on.
If he
believes Tom Brady broke people, Mike. Tom Brady broke people. If quarterbacks was a win-loss stat, why do we play these games?
To determine who the best quarterback is.
If John Lynch believed that wins were a quarterback stat, Jimmy Garoppolo would be under a 9-year contract right now because of the number of games and things that Garoppolo has won for them. So there's a recognition.
And Aaron Rodgers would have, 10 Super Bowl rings by this point?
Except he doesn't.
To John's point,
but he's the best quarterback for 10 years. My point is the best quarterback doesn't always win. Other people are involved. That's my point.
To John's
I'm
point,
frustrated a lot
you risk like an RG3 rushback situation with Brock Purdy saying, you got to be there. You be there. And Lance has never gotten a full opportunity. Now, I'm very skeptical of Lance at this point because no one's ever seen him play. There's not a human being on earth who's actually seen him play.
I don't think Trey Lance has seen himself play.
He has not seen himself play. You know, watching film of the 2019 North Dakota Bisons or whatever does not count as having seen him play. But at the same time, you can say, hey, you know what? Lance is doing all training camp and he'll be the week 1 starter. And then you can be in a situation where Purdy comes in as the hero week 2, week 3, if Lance falters. And if Lance doesn't falter.
Time out San Francisco. Because John McMullen took me down this beaten path before. What happens if Lance is good? Not great, but good. And the 49ers are 3-0 and Brock Purdy's ready to go. And Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, I don't even care which one you use, but they're 3-0 and they've been good. Not where you can blatantly say, okay, they won 7-0 all 3 games. The quarterback didn't do much of shit, but they won 3 straight games. They're good. They're not great. They don't have a 108 quarterback rating, passer rating like Purdy did last year. What do? You pull the plug on an undefeated quarterback? I guess you guys do because you don't believe that wins and losses of the quarterback bad. But good luck selling that when the guy's undefeated as your QB.
Darnold would not fool anybody. Darnold went 3-0 with the Panthers a couple of years ago, and I don't think anyone was fooled. Lance is a potential trade bait at that particular point, or you wait until the success run lines out. The Philadelphia Eagles gave Nick Foles a couple starts and threw Wentz out there later. There's ways you can do this, ways you can sell this along the way. Okay?
And I think it's pretty easy. I mean, if he is 3-0 and Brock's ready, you keep playing him until they lose. And if he's not playing well, then you pull the plug.
Right.
Now, if they're 3-3, you say, all right, that's not good enough with the best roster. It kind of solves itself.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But if you're on the field and you don't lose, you just said, Jody, wins and loss from your perspective, how are you going to bench the guy? If Trey Lance is 6-0, are you going to bench him?
Right. Well, but if we're going to take it one more step, what happens if, as per John McMullen and Mike Tanier's DVOA or whatever stat you want to use, Purdy goes in and puts up these amazing numbers. And oh, snap, the 49ers get beat 28-27. after going 3-0 with Trey Lance, with the first returning game of Brock Purdy. And then the next week, he has 127 passer rate. Oh, but the 49ers losing. They're now 3-2. You putting Lance back in? He won. Purdy lost. But numbers say Purdy was actually better. How do you handle that if you're Shanahan?
You would hope Shanahan has the strength and conviction to be able to handle this, both with the press and with the locker room. If not, that's how quarterback controversies work. Maybe you bring Nate Sudfeld back. Bring Nate Sudfeld back and let him solve the problem.
The unstoppable Nate Sudfeld. That's Purdy.
I'm getting very. I've been very philosophically I've had a philosophical approach this morning, so I'm going to go to Benjamin Disraeli, one of my favorite quotes. That is the former Prime Minister of the UK. There are three kinds of lies, Mike Tanier: lies, damn lies, and statistics. Right. And what he meant was you can manipulate numbers any way you want. Yeah. And that's why when people like Mike Tanier and John McMullen say wins are not a quarterback stat, right, everybody's going to win to a certain degree with the best roster in football. Right. And that's where I give Brock Purdy credit. Now, Mike, not as much as me. I thought he was better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo fan, though. Full disclosure there. But, could Brock Purdy put up those numbers with insert team, Carolina Panthers, Indianapolis Colts, Arizona? Absolutely freaking not. Right. So you can manipulate statistics, wins and losses, a lot of different ways. And, that's why I go back to you can't just look at the outcome. You got to look at the whole picture.
And when you look at the comfort level of Shanahan, and if Shanahan says this quarterback can find the third read, that's going to be a 2 air yard pass. It's going to go for 15 yards because he's found Kittle or Jurassic or Yursic or something like that. And the other guy, he can scramble for 30 yards. And he's got to make those decisions and who feels more comfortable in practice and all. That's why you let that kind of go organically. What's so tricky now is that I'm not sure if either of these guys are practicing to start the training camp. I think Sam Darnold, somebody else.
It could be Sam's show. Sam's show, baby.
Sam's going to start. He's going to be the first guy to take a snap. Now, will he take it on opening week? We don't know that yet. There's a lot to be determined before we get to the second Sunday in September. All right, Mike, if people want your numbers, crunch your numbers, FTN Almanac, how can they best get their hands on it?
You go to FTN.com. It is a fantasy site. You'll find all sorts of fantasy and wagering advice there, and you'll be able to find the link to pre-order the Aaron Schatz DVOA Almanac. The Aaron Schatz Mike Tanier. I'm putting my own name on there. It's not really on there. This was an almanac that's been around for 20 years under different names, under different organizations. It's the same people: Derek Klassen, Brian Knowles, Scott Spratt, Vince Ferri, Aaron, me, all doing it. All the charts and graphs you need to pick your fantasy winners, pick your wagering winners, your prop bet over-unders, things like that. It's all there. It's at FTN.com. Go check it out. And I will be at a new job in a few days, but I can't talk about it.
Few days. Now you're going to make us wait for a few days, huh?
Got to make you wait for a few days. All of my past employers went out of business, and they're scared to make the announcement right now. So we have to wait a few days, so everybody.
All right, now we got to come back, by the way, Mike. And let me know when you're going to Eagles practice, although, I don't know if they're ever going to put out a schedule. So.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't get one either? I thought it was just because I'm
no. Not just you on that one, Mike. The Eagles are slow at telling everybody when they're actually going to get out there on the field. Mike, we're going to get you back, if for no other reason, find out who was crazy enough to hire you. But we always appreciate your football insight. Thanks for jumping in with us today.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike Tanier here with us on Birds 365. Yeah, he told me when I texted him yesterday, he goes, I got a gig, but I can't tell you what the gig is till after August 1st. So we got to wait a little bit. But Mike is always good when he comes on. We will certainly have him on when we get closer to the season and then in season as well. We're close to the end of the show today. You know what we got to do. Come back, put a bow on the show. Stay here on Birds 365.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, Johnny Mac, we ran a little late with Mike Tanier, so we're running out of time. Here's the only thing I need to know from you before tomorrow's show. We got 22 hours before we're going to do this again. Who in the National Football League is going to drop a massive F-bomb? Because we got a couple of them yesterday. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson relating to the people of Philadelphia. Effing this, effing that. Off the chart. Good thing you're not coming to Philadelphia this year. And a little bit of a surprise. Saquon Barkley, after saying
how about that? Yeah,
it is what it is as far as him not getting a contract. But then he goes out and says, yeah, and I guess I have to think about F the Giants and F my teammates. I got to take care of number one. I got to do it. So we had a whole bunch of F-bombs dropping yesterday from NFL people. Who's going down that effing road today, John McMullen?
I don't know. Maybe Cleveland. Perion Winfrey. He gets late trouble. You get that call late in the summer, and they had to release him. Not that he's a great player, but a young player that was kind of relevant, get in trouble. Tends to be those types of situations. Although with CJ, look, I constantly tell these guys, just, play your video games. Just don't play them on Twitch. Just don't go on social media. But nobody listens. With Saquon, there was a little bit more context to the
Did we lose John?
That decision, but he might have to get to that point after talking over with his teammates and saying F the Giants. But he's not walking away from that money. Maybe it's happened before with Le'Veon Bell. We keep bringing up. You never say never. It's possible. Everybody's an individual. They can make their own individual decision. But again, if you're playing the odds, he's not walking away.
If you truly believe F the Giants, because you think they did you dirty, you gotta take a stance. You gotta sit at least one game. Now you're gonna cost yourself $500,000.
Yeah,
it's not nothing. It's not just chump change. It's a significant deduction from your $10 million salary to miss a game. But that's how you can make a point. If you really want to make a point, I'll show the Giants.
Hey, if you really want to make a point,
I should look up. Who did the Giants play week 1? We know they play the Eagles very late in the season. Who did they start with?
I'd have to look it up.
I'll look it up real fast. Cowboys.
Yeah,
Pollard and Saquon get together. And they say, listen, you sit out for your team, I'll sit out for my squad, and we'll both make them look bad because we won't be there.
Yeah, well, you know what they'll do? They'll go to the next guy.
Matt Breida. I'll give you Matt Breida's stats for week 1 against the Cowboys, if that's the case. 12 carries, 32 yards, no touchdowns.
Well, he's got to deal with Mozzie Smith. Yeah, I mean, the Giants are the team most in trouble because they rely on their running back probably more than anybody else in the NFL, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to have a bigger issue than the Cowboys would. Even Las Vegas, they rely on their running back more than anybody else. I think that's fair to say.
Right. And, oh, by the way, gave Daniel Jones $40 million, and you're going to take his best weapon away from him. Saquon's his best weapon. They upgraded the wide receiver position slightly this offseason. Not a massive upgrade at wide receiver, a slight upgrade, and I think, yeah, they could be much better.
They got Darren Waller, but
right. If Waller stays healthy, then they upgraded the tight end. I give them that.
Yeah.
But Giants Cowboys Sunday Night Football week 1. No Pollard, no Saquon. They both say, here's what we think of you guys for not giving us contact.
You'll have Zeke against Matt Breida.
You think Zeke's going to be back there in Dallas, huh?
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, partner, I'm back tomorrow. I got to go to the doctor, find out if I'm dying today. Hopefully that's not the case.
You were dying listening to me and Tanier, but hopefully that's it stays figurative. We don't want literal, Jody. Don't say that.
I think I'm literally going to be upright tomorrow, and I plan to be here. Are you in?
Yeah, let's do it.
McMullen and McDonald, a football Friday in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.